I was reviewing my videos when I realized that my lighting didn't look very professional and it kind of looked pretty average. So to change that, I'm going to show you how it went from this to this and then this. Let's get into it. It doesn't matter if you film on a fancy camera or just shoot on an iPhone. The lighting techniques we discover together today will help make your videos look more professional and more cinematic. So while I was watching The Office, enjoying Dwight and Jim's hilarious antics, something profound clicked in my mind. Lighting, more than anything else, is what makes something look cinematic. Don't believe me? Well, just compare these two clips. Which one do you think is more cinematic and of a higher quality? It mostly comes down to the lighting. But before I touch any of my lights, I needed to set up my camera to capture light properly. So I turned the ISO of my camera right down, which artificially brightens your image. This can be really handy in dark filming scenarios, but it also introduces a lot of grain and doesn't look as good because it's not natural. So I put it down to my camera's lowest setting, but wow, now it's way too dark. So to adjust for this, I also then lowered my aperture. This opened up the lens of my camera, letting in more light and also providing a nice blurry background, which many of my favorite creators have. On phones, we can do the same by adjusting the settings in our camera app or using certain specialty apps, or on my old iPhone here, I can just click on the image and drag down the sun until it matches what I see with my eyes. Next, I'll turn off all my lights and shut my blinds because I want a blank canvas to work from. Then we need to add in a key light. This is the main source of light that will be illuminating my face. I'm personally using an Aperture 120D Mark II with a huge 80cm newer softbox attached. Depending on where we put this light will determine what kind of mood we achieve. Having it directly above or below, you get almost a creepy sort of vibe, as though you're telling a spooky story or you're interrogating someone. Great for Batman, but not for my channel. Putting light to one side of your subject so one half of their face is illuminated and the other half is in shadow is quite dramatic, but still a little bit dark for my taste. But one of the most popular lighting setups I've seen is the Rembrandt lighting technique. This is where you place the light 45 degrees from the subject and angle it down. This highlights your facial features in often a flattering way and creates this triangle of light on your cheek, reminiscent of the Dutch artist Rembrandt. Now, despite that being one of the most popular, you can also place the light right in front of you, which is less cinematic, but it can also be more flattering for some faces. That's why a lot of beauty channels will often use this direct front-on lighting. So I'm going to place my key light about 20 degrees from my camera angle. It gives a nice sense of depth to my face, but not as dramatic as the Rembrandt setup. At this point, if you're using one of the more dramatic lighting setups, you could also add in a fill light, which is basically a light that you place to the side of you to fill in the dark shadows on your face. Now I'm going to do this too, but in more of an interesting way, by placing it more behind me. So it creates almost like a rim light. So my face has bright, dark, then bright again for more depth. And so if we compare where we started to where we are now, you can see that it's really made a big difference. Now I'm going to add two RGB lights into my background to add some colors, make it more interesting, and add some depth. I'll place my Aperture P60C underneath my desk and point it up at the wall. And then I'll place my Aperture MC on the desk, again pointing at that wall. And so I can both hide it and angle it up towards that wall, I'm leaning it against this clay sculpture that I made in art class back in high school. Next, we're going to play around with different color lighting techniques until I find one that I like. But because I only have two lights in my background, there's really only two color techniques that I can use here. The first of which is complementary, where the two colors I select sit opposite one another on the color wheel. This creates a very visually appealing contrast and is something you see a lot in YouTubers' backgrounds. The second technique is to make the colors belong to the same family, so different shades of orange or different shades of blue. This is an analogous, I don't know how to say it,
analogous
lighting technique, where all the colors sit next to each other on the color wheel. Let's start with something you've seen many times before. Teal and orange, a classic complementary color combination. I like it, but against the brownish red of my brick wall, the orange doesn't work very well. Let's keep pushing through. I actually came to really like this pink and blue color combination, which works very well together. To then add some visual interest, I turned on my two computer monitors behind me, which technically then becomes a practical light. Now, a practical light is any light that's within your scene that would naturally give off light anyway. Think of lamps or neon signs, or even my computer there. But the original wallpaper I had was way too busy and didn't match the color scheme I had selected. So a quick trip to Photoshop and I had this minimalistic black and blue wallpaper that looked way better. And that's how I went from this to this. And believe me when I tell you, this is just the beginning of my journey into the world of lighting.